honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one indivisible.
Congratulations on your second day today. I hope everything is going so good. Y'all still have a great smile, so awesome. Now we will go through roll call. We have Mr. Christopher Hiller, present. We have Mr. Claudio Heredia, present. Mr. Jaime C. Barrera, present. Mr. Tom Gonzalez, present. We have our superintendent of school, Mr. Mijares. We have Ms. Valerie Carrillo, our attorney, and myself, Jorge Barrera, present. We will now move to public hearing to discuss the 2026-2027 official budget and proposed tax rate. So at this time, being August 11th, 6:02, the public hearing is now open. And there was no one signed up for the public hearing. So at this time, it is 6:03, Tuesday, August 11th, and the public hearing is now closed. Thank you. Now we will move to citizens' communications and recognitions. We don't have any recognitions today, and we don't have anybody signed up for citizens' communication. So we will move to district reports and presentations. And at this time, we will take 1 through 6. Financial report, utility report, tax collection report, report on 2026 certified appraisal roll from the Merritt County Appraisal District. Number 5, report on the certification of the estimated 2025-2026 excess debt collections for the Pass ISD interest and sinking fund. And number 6, review and discuss the 2026 voter approval tax rate worksheet. Mr. Mijares?
Yeah, yes, those are the reports that we have to have. As you know, we have to levy a tax rate and we have to approve a budget. We have those on the agenda under action items. Those are the standard reports. Are there any questions?
Any questions from the board? Nope. All right, we will move to number 7, report on state compensatory education program evaluations. Mr. Mijares?
Over here.
Rene?
Yes.
Mr. Martinez, yes.
Yeah, so this is the required state comp evaluation that we do to compare the performance from 1 year to the next of the several groups that are at risk as far as state comp regulations are concerned. And according to the evaluation, well, we have the items that are recommended to continue the tutorials that we have, to continue the summer school, to help those kids who might be in greater need of those services. So that's what the evaluation arrived at.
Yep. Any questions from the board? No, I'd like to note we have trustee Hilda Martinez at 6:05. We will now move to number 8, presentation of the TCACE Special Education Audit Report.
Yes, we have Miriam and the presenter report.
Okay, good evening. Thank you for allowing me to be here. I'm Krista Garcia with TK Services by Design. TK stands for the Texas Council Administrators for Special Education. And we were here in the spring of 2026 and did a program review for special education. And so tonight we're going to share those findings with you along with some recommendations and some accommodations, things that are going well. Feel free to interrupt and ask questions, or we can answer questions at the end. So our team are all former special education directors, and so we do have one team member who is especially equipped with understanding the finance side of special education. And then we have with us, we had other leaders who have experience as being directors in small, rural, and large districts. Our process while we were in your district in the spring of 2026 included campus-based observations. So we visited campuses and interviewed principals and observed classrooms. We had stakeholder surveys that were responded to from both staff, family, and families. We also did a pretty deep dive into documents in the district, including procedural guidelines and accountability information, everything that you can think of that is really sort of tells us what our program entails. We also did a student record review, so we randomly selected some student IEPs and looked at them, not necessarily from the compliance standpoint, but really from the services and the alignment with expectations. We also had focus groups. We met with general ed teachers, special ed teachers, paraprofessionals, diagnosticians, parents, pretty wide reaching, and we did individual interviews throughout the district. A few things that will be helpful to understand in terms of background of our findings. We found Eagle Pass ISD to be a very stable district with very strong community connections, a seasoned staff, which you are to be commended for because we've had such significant turnover within the state of Texas that it was really great to be with educators who have been in the field for a while. Student outcomes for special education typically meet or exceed regional and state benchmarks. So what that means is that when we look at outcomes for students in terms of the state assessment, students in Eagle Pass ISD typically outperformed the region and the state or met the same standard. This is not unique to Eagle Pass, but overall enrollment has seen a decline of 7.4%, and we're looking at from 2019 to 2026. But special education grew 48% during that same time period. That is significant. There are some things that drive that. For example, the state moved dyslexia under special ed, so we had an artificial inflation from there. We also had, if you recall, in around 2017, there was the cap on special ed that wasn't a cap on special ed that caused us all to review our child find processes. And so that was one that did lead us to change some practices across the state. They also changed some of the evaluation guidelines for identifying students with a specific learning disability. So lowered the bar, if you will, for qualifying. So that also drove some of the increase. Another thing, another piece of background is that the service delivery includes a full range of options, but the majority of students in Eagle Pass are served in outside of the general ed classroom. So not necessarily served in the least restrictive environment. The district fulfills state accountability standards with good systems, opportunities available though to enhance inclusion support for students with disabilities and also improve identification practices. So our focus is 4 main areas that we'll talk about, and we did a pretty comprehensive analysis of special education systems, services, and outcomes. And we're looking for program effectiveness and long-term sustainability. We identified strengths, gaps, and opportunities for improvement. Our findings are grounded in data analysis, stakeholder input, and campus observations. And they're intended to support strategic decision-making and continuous improvement activities. So the first area that we looked at was instructional quality and program alignment. So here we're really looking at consistency across the district and effectiveness of our instructional practices across the district. So generally speaking, our findings were that the district doesn't operate under a clearly defined instructional framework or continuum of services. So we have an inconsistency across the district. And that's one area that we feel very strongly, it shouldn't matter which school you're going to, the services should look similar. Inclusive practices and supports are implemented inconsistently, limiting access to general education settings for some students. So sometimes special education in Eagle Pass is seen as a place rather than a service. Resource settings in some cases are used inappropriately, including behavior management or for non-instructional purposes such as discipline. Instructional quality varies across campuses with strong practices not consistently replicated district-wide. So there were some really strong practices at some campuses that were not necessarily seen at others. And without that framework, it's difficult for everyone to have the same mental model of what it should look like. Professional learning is not aligned to a unified instructional model, so it reduces our overall impact. Key program areas such as dyslexia, early childhood special education, and transition services are not consistently aligned with best practices. For example, our dyslexia programming didn't meet the guidelines in terms of the amount of time that should be spent on a weekly basis for students. And so without that fidelity to programming, we're probably not seeing the outcomes that we would want to see. Early childhood special education, we don't have, sorry, I start to use we when I work in a district because I feel like I'm part of the district now. So early childhood special education, we don't have a full continuum of services. And that again is not unique to Eagle Pass. We're seeing that across the state. In some areas, but our 3-year-olds coming into us should have a full continuum. They should be able to go into the general education classroom or a specialized setting based on their unique needs. And right now, because you don't have a district-wide pre-K3 program, they're all self-contained. The district is already working on that, though. Part of what drives the increase in the special education referral process is a lack of MTSS processes. So when we don't have strong tier 2 and tier 3 supports for students, then special ed becomes the only other option for them. And so we tend to over-refer students and have limited other options to be able to serve them. So that is part, I think, of the over-identification. I know you have to be careful saying over-identification, but I do feel like we are getting close to that. I mean, that increase is significant. Some good things, students consistently demonstrated very positive behavior and engagement across campuses. Great kids. Some life skills classrooms reflect very strong instructional practices with structured routines and individualized supports, and those classrooms can be used as models for other teachers to go and observe and learn from. Staff across the board demonstrated a very high level of commitment to supporting students with disabilities. We just don't have the system for them to make the right choices for placement decisions. Effective instructional practices are present in several campuses and classrooms, and staff maintain a collaborative mindset despite the absence of the consistent instructional framework. So recommendations in this area, obviously, is to develop a clearly defined instructional framework and continuum of services. So what does in-class support look like in Eagle Pass, not at one campus, right? What's the profile of a student? How do we make those decisions in terms of how students are placed? We should have a consistent mental model across the district. We have opportunities to expand inclusive practices through Co-teaching or in-class support models. Professional learning should be aligned to the clearly defined instructional expectations. And instructional roles should be clarified to ensure certified teachers are responsible for delivering instruction. In at least one setting, we had a para that was responsible for delivering instruction to young learners, and we need to have a certified teacher in every classroom. Program-specific service models should be strengthened, particularly in dyslexia, early childhood special ed, and transition services. So right now, for example, the 18+ programming looks more like 13th grade rather than what adult life is supposed to look like. So there's some opportunities there. The second part of the review is related to staffing and service delivery. So here we look at caseloads, organizational structures that support our program implementation. I never say this, I just want to say, the district is understaffed across instructional evaluation and related service roles. You don't have enough special education staff to do the right work. High caseloads limit the ability of staff to provide individualized instruction and collaborate effectively. Limited staffing capacity restricts the expansion of inclusive delivery models. We can't push them out to general ed without the right supports. Evaluation staff and speech-language pathologists carry heavy workloads that impact service delivery. And the absence of a formal staffing model leads to inconsistent staffing allocations across campus. So we should have, if this, then this, right? And then the decision should be made for us in terms of what our staffing looks like, instead of who seems to be the squeaky wheel, or where's the problem that I need to staff right now. We should have a consistent staffing model. Limited central office capacity reduces the ability to monitor and support campuses effectively. Across the board, I will tell you, central office in this district is lean, very, very lean, including in special education. Despite the staffing shortages, staff continues to maintain compliance and provide services. The special education staff across the district demonstrated very strong commitment and professionalism. The district benefits from an experienced workforce and strong campus leadership. District leadership shows a clear commitment to supporting students with disabilities, and positive student outcomes are sustained despite resource limitations. So recommendations in this area: the district should develop a formal staffing model aligned to student needs and service intensity. Implement a phased plan to increase staffing over time. You probably won't be able to address everything at once, but phase in where are the areas that we really want to focus on and grow from there. Central office support and program leadership capacity should be expanded. Routine reviews of staffing, caseloads, and service demands should be conducted. Recruitment strategy should be expanded through partnerships and alternative certification pathways. I know one of the things I heard frequently was that it's very difficult to recruit to the area if you don't live here or have family here, right? You're very far away from a big city, so it can be a challenge. So we need to expand opportunities for the people that live here to want to do the work that we're wanting them to do and needing them to do. Okay, so part 3, this is related to really the budget, financial sustainability. So we're looking at trends for expenditures and fiscal sustainability of the program. So federal funding over time has declined and does not increase proportionately with student identification. So you don't get your federal dollars because you've increased your special ed by 43%. I promise you your budget hasn't increased by 43% for special education in the federal side. When I was a director in my district, our federal dollars were covering 14% of our operating budget for special ed. So when Congress authorized IDEA, they promised to fund it at 40%, and they have never lived up to that expectation. I think 17% was the highest that they've ever funded it for. SHAR's revenue, which is Medicaid reimbursement funds, have decreased significantly. They've made it much more challenging for school districts to access this funding, but you still have to provide all the services. Special education costs continue to rise due to increased identification and staffing needs. Increases in dyslexia funding contribute to higher maintenance of effort obligations. So essentially, there's a rule with financial obligations in special education that you have to spend at least what you spent last year on special ed. You cannot reduce your expenses in special ed without going through some exception processes. So you have to maintain your effort. So as you do increase expenditures, you do have to do that cautiously, because you can't have a big injection of finances, then you have to reduce it the next year, because then you have to pay back the difference of that funding to the state. Evaluation funding does not fully offset the cost of conducting evaluations. So last year, the state appropriated $1,000 per evaluation for students being identified for special education. What we hear from the field is that covers some kids, but most students, it costs more than that in terms of the time that it takes to evaluate a student and what the salary costs are. Additional fiscal pressures exist due to salary increases and program expansion. So the district essentially, your state allocation for special education is based on your enrollment. It's also not keeping pace with the numbers of students being increased. And we are required to spend 55% of that allotment on special education that is given to you by special education. The other 45% can go into the general fund and cover shared expenses like a building principal and the electricity and those types of things. The district is spending roughly 72 or 73%, I believe, of that funding currently on special ed. So some highlights: the district demonstrates strong collaboration between finance and special education departments. Financial processes are clearly defined and support accountability. The district consistently meets maintenance of effort requirements. Special education funding and staffing are prioritized. Finance staff provide responsive and solution-oriented support to program staff. And that's not always the case. There is a conflict between what special ed has to do and what the finance office has to do, right? You have to balance the books and we have to do all the things for kids. And so that conflict can sometimes not be, create a very collaborative experience. And that was not the case here. Some recommendations would be to consider implementing a multi-year financial plan aligned to projected funding trends. So look out 3 years and say, this is where we want to be, and start making some incremental changes in order to get there. Strategically manage maintenance of effort as you do so that those are sustainable. SHAR's reimbursements should be maximized through strategic staffing and coding practices. Dyslexia and evaluation costs should be closely monitored within overall fiscal planning. Proportionate share expenditures should be tracked and monitored for compliance. I know they're already working on that in the department. We get proportionate share of dollars. Part of our grant funding has to go to serving students in private school. So it's a proportion based on your number of students in private school, and those dollars follow that student to private school. Typically, it means they get speech therapy, for example. And when the money runs out, the money runs out. So it has to be managed and monitored pretty closely. Resource allocation should be aligned to support inclusive costs and cost-effective service delivery models. So right now, I know, for example, at your at least at your high schools, I believe, you have a content mastery process, right? Students go to their special ed services rather than their special ed services being included in the general ed classroom. And so that's a very inexpensive model to maintain, but you're not going to have the outcomes that you expect because it becomes essentially a work completion center, right? You can't send the instruction with the student. Somebody has to be monitoring the room. It might be receiving students from English at the same time as algebra. And so they're really just helping students complete their assignments rather than offering specially designed instruction that the IEP requires. It's a very old model, and it has been eliminated from most districts because it's not considered an evidence-based practice. When we talk about systems, access, and student outcomes, this is where we're talking about that consistency across the district and the system impact. Campus culture is very strong. District culture, extremely strong. But implementation of services varies significantly across campuses. Program quality is heavily dependent on individual campus leadership. Limited central office oversight contributes to inconsistency in practices, and that is just simply by design. There are 2 people running the department for the most part, and you have more, they could just sit and answer phone calls and do the monitoring things that are required of TEA and be very, very busy. So there's not a lot of opportunities for coaching teachers and helping campus administrators improve practices. MTSS, or multi-tiered systems of support, implementation is inconsistent across campuses, which does drive up the referral process for special education, because if we don't have other resources to provide for kids, then we tend to over-identify students and put them in special ed because we don't have a strong Tier 2 process. Some scheduling practices raise concerns regarding access to the full instructional day, and also related to scheduling, I have to say too that it's not a problem unique to Eagle Pass, but having a specific number of coaching sections at the high school does eliminate those sections for special education. And so we need a method to offset that impact that we have to make sure that we're prioritizing student supports from the special ed staff. And transition program structure and coding require better alignment with expectations. We found that one of the ways that we were documenting students was not, which instructional arrangement was not aligned with the student attendance accounting handbook, and they've already corrected that, I believe. Campuses demonstrate a positive school climate with strong student behavior and engagement. Staff show a strong sense of responsibility towards students and families. Principals are actively involved in supporting special education services. A shared commitment to student success is evident across campuses, and there are established routines that contribute to stable and supportive learning environments. So a recommendation here as well is to establish a clear district-wide framework for service delivery and inclusion. What does inclusion support look like? Who provides it? How do we decide what services a child should receive? Central office monitoring, coaching, and support systems should be strengthened. MTSS implementation should be standardized across campuses. Scheduling practices should be reviewed to ensure full access to instruction. Transition programming and PEIMS coding should be aligned with requirements, and I believe they're already working on that as well. Data systems and routine review should be used to improve consistency and outcomes. So we had surveys, a great number of staff responses related to surveys, and so we took some of the common themes, and essentially the majority of staff rate special ed services as good to high quality with generally positive perceptions of the effectiveness. Staff report the referral process is mostly clear and effective with overall satisfaction and district responsiveness. Collaboration between general and special education staff is present, but inconsistent, with opportunities to strengthen shared ownership. I believe your teachers want to do best by kids. The structure needs to change to support that for them. MTSS is viewed positively as a support system, though understanding and implementation vary across campuses. Staff express strong beliefs in collective responsibility for students with disabilities and positive relationships with families. Primary needs identified include additional staffing, increased resources, and more targeted professional development. So your teachers are saying, we need more training. Your administrator said, we need more training. We gathered parent feedback in two ways. One was through surveys, and the other was through a focus group. So the survey responses, overall, high satisfaction with their child's educational experience and services received. Communication between school and families is generally rated as good to excellent. Parents feel valued as members of the ARD committee and believe their input is respected. Most parents report that IEPs are implemented and that staff support their child's needs effectively. A strong sense of inclusion is reported, with most parents indicating their child feels they belong at school. So students feel like they belong, so that's different. We're talking about inclusion, the feeling of inclusion versus the placement, the LRE, least restrictive environment. Key areas for improvement include increased communication, additional staff, and expanded support services. So with the focus group, some parents reported dissatisfaction with the level of support and services provided to their child. Parents shared that they often felt they had to advocate or fight to secure appropriate services. Several parents mentioned they did not feel like equal members of the ARD committee or that their input was fully valued. Concerns were raised that services were not consistently provided unless parents actively pushed for them. Some families reported limited inclusion opportunities for their children in general education settings. Parents indicated they needed to escalate concerns to central office in order to be heard. Despite concerns, parents noted that district leadership, particularly the special education director, was responsive once issues were brought to them. So that's a lot. And so we try to help narrow down the big rocks, right? So that we can prioritize some things that will help us get started. The most critical actions that we feel that you could take is to establish a district-wide instructional and service delivery framework to ensure consistent practices across the district, strengthen inclusion, and standardize program implementation across campuses. With 2 people at central office to support, we have to have some common ground for them to be able to support. They can't support 15 different types of programming at the number of campuses that you have. Address staffing shortages through a strategic staffing model to reduce caseload pressures, align staffing to student needs, and expand inclusive service delivery. Strengthen systems oversight and central support capacity to improve consistency, increase monitoring, and provide stronger guidance to campuses while maintaining the district's positive culture. Okay, that's all for me. What questions do you have? That was a lot.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for that very detailed report. I know that when we had that conference call many, many months ago, Mr. Cox was very adamant about being detailed and taking off the gloves and telling us the way it is and the way he saw it. So we appreciate your honesty. And I did have some, I read your report twice. I do have a vested interest in this. So I think the term that came up a lot in the report is the stress for gen ed and inclusion and LRE, least restrictive environment. So I think, my question is, there's a lot, there's a lot of good, there's a lot of things that we can improve upon. What, mentioned benchmarks, maybe setting some benchmarks, and you gave us those benchmarks there. So as a district, have started implementing some of those benchmarks?
Yes, I think some progress has definitely been made. We've had some conversations with early childhood special education and opening up the LRE there. That's where it starts. And, the pre-K and guidelines are purposeful play. So what an easy opportunity to include our students with disabilities, right? Part of the struggle, I'm going to be honest, is the staffing. It's very difficult to make those changes without appropriately providing the staff to support them. So for early childhood special education, for example, the most cost-effective way to deliver those services is through a teacher who is duly certified. So pre-K is the only place where a teacher can serve both as the special education teacher and the general education teacher. So it's a pretty cost-effective way to provide those supports. And I know that Miriam and her team are working on opening those opportunities, and our principals are identifying staff and looking for ways to make that happen. I know they're working on some other things too. This is not flip a switch and we can do this differently tomorrow. There are going to have to be some resource allocation to really making the changes that are the deep changes anyway that need to be made. So, identifying what can be done right now and then what needs to be staffed differently in order to implement with fidelity.
Yeah,
Did
the
that
staff-
answer your question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. The staff-to-student ratios that you mentioned at the ECSE, the caseload numbers that you have, they're staggering to see those numbers. It's like 35 to 1,
Right.
at
Right.
one campus.
So we have a lot of para support in Eagle Pass, and I think probably within the last 5 years, there's been a perception in many, many, many districts that 2 are better than 1. So 2 paras cost, about what a teacher costs. But at the end of the day, it doesn't reduce our caseloads, and paraprofessionals, while they are essential to providing special education supports, cannot deliver specially designed instruction. And they can't be the case manager. And so looking at opportunities to think about where can we consider reducing para support to increase teacher support, where we have it, but you don't have a lot of room for that.
Another number that jumped off the page at me is the number of SPED students that has increased in the last 5 years by 48%,
Right.
But again, the staffing is the other word that pops out because those numbers have not kept up with the
Correct.
with the increase.
Correct. And, also there is the struggle of finding that staff.
Correct, yes.
And so, there needs to be opportunities to identify folks within the district who maybe want to take on the role of, being a special educator, but who would do that if my caseload's going to be 35? Catch me if you can, pre-K teacher is going to say, right?
And those numbers being like that is the vast majority of students in SPED are learning disabled, right? LD.
Right, right.
So would we be safe to say there's an inflated number of kids going directly into special ed?
I would say so. It's not unique to this district. It's what we're seeing across the state. Without being able to say, like when a student, we say, well, this student's not going to qualify for special ed, we need them to be able to say, but they can have these services. Here's how we're going to keep them moving along. And without that, special ed becomes tier 2.
Is this where MTSS would come in?
MTSS is about tiered instruction. So all kids get tier 1, and then tier 2 is for those kids that are struggling, and then tier 3 is for those students who continue to struggle. And sometimes it's seen as sort of the path to special education, but we should be viewing it as the path instead of special education for those students who it's enough for. But we don't have a strong system in place for them, and so if not this, then that, right? Like we have to have something to do to support these students.
Another thing you mentioned was that, some campuses are doing this, but other campuses are doing that, when we should really all be working together in the same goals.
Right.
Is that something that we're working on now? And I think Miriam said that we are working on getting on the same page.
And I will say this while she's getting ready to respond. One of the things that she'll be required to do this year that's new from TEA is a special education diagnostic process. And that process will also help her identify using data points along the way to help keep you informed of what the progress has been.
Awesome.
Okay, so if you can repeat that question one more time, sir?
The steps that we're taking to get the district on the same level.
Yes, we're working on that instructional alignment that Krista was talking about so that everybody is on the same page and people are not doing different services at different campuses. As far as educating the principals about this, I know that Mr. Cox and I were meeting with them on a monthly basis to kind of get everybody on the same page. Because we don't want one campus to be doing content mastery and then another campus to just be doing resource support only. We want it to be a combination of both resource and inclusion support, mostly in the LRE.
That was my next question for you, because until we find a way to clone you, you're gonna need some support down the line. So that's where admin comes in, right? To help you out, or?
Well, the thing is that we're looking at all the IEPs right now because what we found was that across the board, everybody was getting resource support at the elementary level 3 to 4 times a week for 30 minutes across the board for reading and for math. That's not individualized. When I went to Region 20 to work on the new staffing model, what I found was that most schools that I worked with on the staffing model, the most that they recommended per 9 weeks was 4 sessions for 30 minutes. And when I asked about that, they said because the idea is not to pull them out as much from the general education setting so that they can receive more of that core support from that experienced teacher. Not to say that our special ed teachers are not experienced, but we're just there to kind of support the student, emphasize any points that they may not understand, and then to have them, the special ed teacher, go into the classroom to actually do small group instruction, which is kind of what Krista was just talking about, those tier 2 supports for some of these students that are even struggling.
Thank you. Yeah.
I have a question regarding the comparative special populations data. We were compared to Bernie, Laredo, Medina, Round Rock, and San Felipe. Although our percent of economically disadvantaged is so different, how do we?
The district selected those districts for
I
comparative. So we
see.
typically ask, who do you compare yourself to in terms of performance? And that's who we'll include in the report. You're a unique district in terms of finding, other districts that look just like you.
Okay. And what additional funding do they get that we could possibly implement in our district? Because it's just a huge difference in the economically disadvantaged part here.
So you do receive funding to offset economically disadvantaged students, that would include students with disabilities, that they wouldn't receive. But typically those funds are not directed towards special ed, nor should they be. They have very limited accessibility and should not be used to support special ed. I think the main issue is that the staffing just hasn't kept up with the growth in the district, right? So our numbers have done this and our staffing has sort of declined over time. And it's not necessarily unique. As we've had this staggering growth in special education, we've also had a very hard time hiring special educators. And we've had increased costs of everything, the cost of a teacher, the cost of a diag, we've got to give people raises to make them stay. And so, I think that it's just a matter of if we can start to work toward more balanced staffing model and not try to address it all at once, then over time we can align the dollars with the expenditures and the outcomes for students.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I want to go over some of the highlights of your report. Thank you for the evaluation, and thank you, Ms. Garcia. I want to simplify some of the things. from what I heard from you, and I went through the report just like Mr. Barrera and made my notes. Apparently, our students are performing at or above the regional and state averages, correct? So we're
Yes.
doing well with what we have, but we can do better. And the way we can improve our overall program is more staffing, which means we would need to provide more funds, whether from, I know we're getting some federal funds, state funds, but we also have a balance that we can look at to improve the staffing of the special ed needs department. And also, I think Ms. Garcia and you indicated we need a general uniform program that can be applied district-wide so that as we talked about, everybody would be on the same page.
You're hired. You got it.
One of the things that I saw in your report, and I want to compliment and praise our employees, is they have a great attitude
Yes.
and they're doing well.
Yes.
And that shows that we care about our most vulnerable students, the special needs students. They need those services, but obviously they need more help through staffing, through a uniform program, et cetera. So we're on the right track.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
The culture of this district is very, very strong. I could work here. And that's always sort of my benchmark of, would I want to work there? And so I really enjoyed my time here. Everyone was very professional and very open. We can't push on the system and just push kids out to LRE without the support. So it all has to be sort of lockstep, right? We build the framework, we staff it appropriately, and then we launch it. So it's going to take a little bit of time, or we will dismantle the culture.
Sure. And I think we can, I'm hoping that the district can work with your company so you can provide us with some plans on how to improve the staffing, obviously the funding, the recruiting of appropriate personnel, special ed teachers and paraprofessionals. But I want to tell you that the report was very eye-opening, very comprehensive, and it can help us get better.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
Can I add, I think the teachers have done a great job, the staff, but I also think the kids themselves and the parents have done a very good job from the commendations you also gave us. So it's been very positive too. So we do have stuff to work on, but we do want to commend the parents and the staff and the kids as well.
Absolutely.
And lastly, on this, you talked about our local board policies. Is there any additional suggestions you have for us as a
No,
board?
you
Because
have
we
all
did
the
not
ones that
include
you
that.
need.
Okay.
And some of that is now driven more closely by the state in terms of what policies we are expected to have. They started that at around 2020. But we always just make sure that yours are exactly what they should be. And so, yeah, I wouldn't recommend any other additional policies.
Thank you, very informative.
Thank you. Thank you. I enjoyed my time here very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I have one more question.
Yes.
Mrs. Garcia or yourself, whoever can answer it. Can someone explain to me the RTI process?
You want to?
So basically what that is you go through different levels of RTI to determine if there's strategies or working in small groups. They meet quite often to see if that is working. If it's not, then they go back and they change the plan again. The misconception is that you have to go through RTI in order to be referred to special ed. That's a misconception. If we know that there is a known disability like autism, obviously we're not going to go through the RTI process. But the ones that should be going through this process are those that are specifically learning disabled. Because as you saw, those are being over-identified. And so we need to make sure, just like Krista just said, that we are providing the strategies that they need in the classroom so that they can continue to be successful in the classroom. We don't want to automatically put a disability on a student. That's not our job. Our job is to identify the needs and make sure that they're receiving the appropriate support. But the RTI process in this district, we have seen, looking at the referrals, it's being skipped a lot and just being absolutely, given to us and say, hey, just go ahead and evaluate. And so laws have changed on that now. Just recently when I went to TK's for the summer, we are no longer just looking at IQ scores or academic scores. It's the whole process. What have you done and what have you documented to help this student become successful? So it's based on months of information, okay? It's not just 2 weeks and let's refer, okay? So it needs to be done better so that we are not disabling students. That's not our job, okay? And that's where we're seeing the biggest increase. I will say that each month, when I first got this job, we had about 50 to 80 referrals per month. We only have 10 per month now, because we've been going out there and educating the community, the Head Starts, early childhood, the Kickapoo Education Center. We've been working really hard with the community to let them know these are the steps you have to take before they come to us. We're the final step. So that's what we're currently working on, sir.
Thank you.
And the only thing I would add in terms of the RTI process is that when we have a suspicion of a disability, there should also be a need for specially designed instruction in order to actually evaluate, right? So not just the suspicion of a disability alone. For example, a student with ADHD might need accommodations in the classroom, but there's no specially designed instruction that's going to help their attention. It's about them getting the supports that they need as accommodations, which can be done under 504 and sometimes just good teaching practices. Right. They don't need the label of special education. We don't need the whole process for them. And we do skip that a lot. I will say that one of the things that was shared with me throughout multiple focus groups is that sometimes we just tell parents, go ahead and request an evaluation, and they're not going to say no to you. We really shouldn't skip the process. The process is important for the student to make sure that we are ruling out other things that we can do before we give them that label.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for all the hard work that you all did in this. And Mrs. Garcia, Ms. Lozano, we look forward to keeping up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you.
We will now move to second budget workshop, review 2026-2027 official budget and proposed tax rate. Mr. Mijares?
Good evening. This is the final workshop for the budget before we adopt the budget. This information that you have on this page is pretty much what I present every board meeting. The numbers have not changed. We are looking at the end of this month, August 31st of 2026. We're looking at having about almost $53 million. That's the amount that we're looking at having. And then what we're looking at for next year, after covering the salaries, we have $8.9 million of salaries that we had to cover. We're looking at our fund balance to go down to $43.9 million. This is in the M&O fund. I know the presentation on special ed was just made. Special ed incurs a lot of expenditures. The state doesn't give us enough money to fund the program. It's one of those programs that, for whatever reason, the state has not put the funding that it needs. It's a very minimal fund that's throughout the whole state. This year, we had to put more than $1 million into the special ed program. I met with the special ed director. We have evaluations, and we have staffing that was being funded from federal funding, and the funding was no longer there, and we had to move that to the state budget for special ed. And they were talking about maintenance of effort. You have to keep that cost once you incur it for the coming year. So we're going to be increasing our maintenance and effort more than $1 million this year. So for whatever reason, the state has not been keeping up with those costs. And they always put it on the agenda. They always put it as one of the needs. I know we're going to go back to the state. Mr. Barrera takes us every year, and maybe that's something we can bring up to the legislators, that it's time for them to do something about it. They talk about the needs in that program, but they don't put the funding to it. And then we also had some reductions in funding for that program. And as I was presenting the different funding sources, all of them have been reduced. There has not been a single one in the federal level that they haven't reduced it, or they have made it more complicated for us to generate the funding that we were generating in the previous years. So that's something that hopefully we can address, and hopefully we can get more support so that we can be able to do what we need to do. And the other program is the Transportation Department. They don't fund it also. They fund it at a very minimal percentage. And there's some big needs there too that we've known, and we met with the director too there, and hopefully we'll be able to address those. This is the budget that we worked on this year. This is the last year of the biennium. They kept the funding that they gave us last time for the raises. I know we met last year and we had some raises and we had some money that we had to work with. So this is the last year, and in February, I don't know if it's February exactly when we go over there, but that's something we're gonna have to look at. This next slide is the actual budget. This is the actual budget that we sent to TA. We do submit this to TA through PIMS. This is the format. You have the categories that I presented during the summer. You have the general fund, that's one category. Food service, that's another category. By the way, food service continues to do very well. They continue to fund the program. That's a different program. They are self-funded now. They are able to sustain their operation. And then we have the special revenue funds, and then we have the debt. Just for you to know, the debt is now gone from $3 million to payment to over $12 million. That includes the $150 million bond issuance. It's already there in the budget. We were able to get the schedules right away, and we were able to incorporate it into the budget so that the budget would be complete. That's pretty much what your annual payment's gonna be from this point forward. We'll be paying about $12 million in bond payments versus the $3 million that we were paying before. This is the tax rate, so we can be transparent what happened to our tax rate. Our tax rate went up by 21 pennies. It might sound a lot, but I'll show you the impact that's gonna do to the different properties, households. That 21 pennies, next year when I come and we approve the tax rate again, it's gonna go down because we will get the state funding. It will be going down to pretty much what David and I discussed. It'll go from 21 pennies. Next year, it'll go down to between 17 and 18 pennies. There's another slide here that I want to go over so that you can see the impact of the tax rate for the different values that we have. You want to give them this? I need to open that other window, Crystal. The other window, he already had it there for me. That one, yeah. This is just for the transparency to the taxpayers. It's something that 150 million is something that it's going to impact the district tremendously. The first one that you say there for 208,974, that's the average household market value. That's what the average is. And when you look at it, the difference at the very bottom, they're gonna be paying $146 more. As Mr. Claudio Heredia presented when he was presenting his tax information, $146 is a hotel when you go out or what have you. I mean, that's going to be the impact, $146 for the average household. And then, like I was telling everybody, next year, and then you have the different values. If you have a house of 390,000, it'll be 500, a little bit over $500. And as you know, just a point of reference, this will go down next year. We will be getting the EDA. We structured the bond the way David did the sale and everything, so that we can fully have the state funding year 2. So this amount will go down for year 2. It'll go down around 20 to 25% down. So it is very manageable. We already have the money. We already are earning interest. For transparency, we're getting close to 4%, 3.8 something on that money. And at the end of the project, we're expecting to get just an interest between $5 and $6 million or even more. We did receive the full 150. That's another thing that I want everybody to understand, that when we sold the bond and when they wired the money to Eagle Pass, I talked to Mr. Gonzalez and everything, and we got the full amount. We got exactly $150 million to work with, plus $6 million. We're at $156 million that we'll be able to work with. So that's just for everybody to understand the impact that it'll have on the different values that after for a bond sale. That's pretty much what you saw that we had to put in the newspaper, and those are the amounts for the different values. And as you see, it's not that much, especially for the amount that we were able to pass. Are there any questions?
You said that we receive federal funds and state funds for the special
Yes.
education services.
Yes.
Do we also use some of the local funds?
We're subsidizing it, yes.
Okay.
That $1 million that I told you, we're paying it off from M&O. Yeah, I met with the special ed director. For whatever reason, everything that's federal, and even the other reimbursements they do through student records and all that we do, we get funding, everything has been going less. And of course, our state legislators don't control the federal money. That comes from Washington, D.C. They have nothing to do with it. The only thing that our legislators control is the one we get from the state, the special ed. That money hasn't gone up. They gave us just about, the problem we've been having, like everything else, is that they have a lot of evaluations too. On top of the staffing that we have to fund, we also have contracted people that do the evaluations. So we're having to pay it from M&O funds because, like the presenter was saying, we're like at 78% or whatever. That's not counting the $1 million more that I just added. Once you add that, we're pretty much running a program that's not funded from the state. It is not funded from the state. This is a reality. It has nothing to do with Eagle Pass, locally, or anything. It has to do at the state level. They know they're not funding that program, and they know they're not funding the transportation program. And it's just, you have to subsidize it. So I don't know what happened with federal funding. Maybe the special ed director can tell us, but we had a huge reduction in her fund, which is called 224. We had a really huge reduction. So in order for us not to let people go, right, or cut the program, I had to move all those slots to the regular state budget. I'm doing it as we speak. And because the federal money is not there, it's not sustaining it. It would be great if they would at least keep it at the same level that they have sustained it from year to year, but they're reducing it. And I know the special ed director knows more of the details to that because she works with that on a day-to-day basis, but that's a situation we're in right now. And it's a serious situation because what's happening also is that, like they were saying, the costs are going up. Like last year we gave a raise,
And we gave the best raise that we could. And when you have that, your special ed budgets go up automatically because special ed has 98%, in the high 90s of their budget is salaries. Almost all theirs is salaries and those evaluations that they do. That's what our special ed director has to deal with when she's working with her budget, in the high 90s, so it's already set. So when something like this happens now, that I move those $1 million to the regular program that we have, I cannot send it back. Even if federal funding would come up, I have to keep them there as it was presented because of the maintenance of effort. That maintenance of effort has been here since I started, which means whatever you spend from your state budget, you have to maintain the same amount subsequent years, not just the following year, all the subsequent years from that point forward. So that's something that maybe we can, because it's happening throughout the state. It's not just happening in Eagle Pass. This is not a defunding or a problem. It's happening everywhere. And when you compare us with all the other districts, I can assure you that other districts, their matrices, when you compare staffing with the people and all that, they're struggling because most of the districts right now are in a deficit budget. They don't have money. They're barely making it because we're hoping that something changes. Now, they do have a lot of money. They have the most money that they've ever had at the state level. It's unreal how much money they have. They never had this. It's even more than what they gave us this last salary increase. So we've always discussed that at that level, and they've always said that they would increase the weights because it's actually weights. They get funded very differently than we get funded for general ed. State, federal, special ed gets funded based on weights, FTEs, weights, contact hours. It's a very complex formula that we have, but they're only funding it 30% of the cost. So it doesn't matter how many weights you put in there or what you do to it, you're not gonna be able to do what the presentation is telling you that we're supposed to do because you have the needs here, but you don't have the funding. It's the mechanism's not there to be able to hopefully do an impact. It's just robbery when you compare how they're funding the special ed program. I mean, it's been like that since I've been here, and it's never too late to be able to do something, but it's not just the state. The federal government, which is the one that we were talking about, that I had to put a lot of the employees back to our general special ed state budget, they also cut it. So it's Washington, D.C. cutting it, and it's the state not cutting it. The state hasn't cut it, but they're not giving us
Thank you.
what we need.
I think you answered my questions. Thank you, Mr. Mijares. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
To action items. Number one, consider and take appropriate action on the request to adopt the official budget for the 2026-2027 school year. We heard Mr. Mijares. Do we have a motion? We have a motion by Mr. Jaime Barrera. Do we have a second? Second by Trustee Heredia. Any other questions? If not, all in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Number two, consider and take appropriate action on the request to adopt Resolution 2026-2027-01 to set the 2026 tax rate. We saw the presentation as well. Do we have a motion? A motion by,
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you want them to read the motion on page 173? Somebody has to read
okay,
that
can you read?
to go along with the
Chris,
resolution.
Mr. Hitler, can you read the motion as it says?
But this is also to adopt the resolution, right? This motion plus this language. Okay.
on there, no?
Someone has a motion in front of them, so we can, it's not. Yeah, our screens went out.
There's,
It's on 173. Can you scroll down to 173?
I think
Okay, go up.
173.
It's right here.
Okay.
So I would say, I move the board approve the resolution and move to adopt, because that way you do both. Can you do that?
I move
Move that the board approve the resolution, that number, and move to adopt that, because it's gotta be both. Maybe just say that, just say the resolution. Okay?
Yes.
Sorry, let's turn this off. Say this first.
876.
173. I know, it's got 2 points.
There we go.
I don't think they want me to ask any more questions.
Okay.
All these things
I'm
on.
gonna go tell them.
You can listen to it. No.
I move, Mr. President, I move that the board adopt resolution 2026-2027-01, and I move to adopt the 2026 tax rate of 0.74820 for the maintenance and operations fund, and the tax rate of 0.28879 for the interest and sinking fund, for the total tax rate of 1.03699. I also move that the property tax rate be increased by the adoption of a tax rate of 1.03699, which is effectively a 0.027664% increase in the tax rate.
Correction. The number again, you said it's 0.2.
Which is effectively a 0.27664% increase in the tax rate.
We have a motion by trustee Hiller. Do we have a second?
Second?
Second by trustee Martinez. Questions? If not, all in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. We will now move to consent items. We will take 1 through 13. Any questions on the consent items? If there are no questions, do we have a motion?
I had one question.
Yes, sir.
On item 13, consider and take appropriate action on the request to approve an interlocal agreement for services and equipment of Maverick County. What is that? Can you explain it to me, just briefly?
Usually an interlocal agreement would be an agreement to be able to use each other's equipment and things like that with Maverick County and the Eagle Pass Independent School District. Am I correct on that?
Yes, and I think, Rolly, is this the one that we're doing to convert the tennis courts?
Yeah, this is also for the use of the old Eagle Pass Junior High tennis courts, the one that are close to the old Eagle Stadium. And provide usage for them also for the general community there in that area. They're looking to retrofit it perhaps to make them some outdoor basketball courts as well, in coordination with Maverick County. So the use of those facilities and.
That's good
and
that they be
like
used.
Mr. Barrera said, it just continues with the use of equipment, services, and just having that MOU between both entities.
Okay. Any other questions by the board? Yes, sir?
Number 5, what is that Davis-Bacon prevailing waste? Is that just the name of it? Okay. Okay,
You have to follow it.
okay.
Any other questions? If not, do we have a motion to accept the consent items? We have a motion by trustee Jaime Barrera. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Coach Tom Gonzalez. Any other question or any other questions? Yes. If not, all in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. At this time, the Board of Trustees of the Eagle Pass Independent School District will convene in closed session as authorized by the Texas Government Code, Chapter 551, to deliberate upon the following matters. Item number 10, number 1, the board will hear the request to hire personnel to fill vacancies pursuant to TGC 551.074. Number 2, the board will hear the request to hire a professional employee to be assigned by superintendent as deputy superintendent for curriculum and instruction, subject to the possible future reassignment by the superintendent pursuant to TGC 551.074. Number 3, the board will hear the request to hire a professional employee to be assigned as network administrator, subject to possible future reassignment by the superintendent pursuant to TGC 551.074. Number 4, the board will hear the Level 3 grievance appeal of Veronica Chavez pursuant to TGC 551.071, 551.074, 551.082, and 551.0821. And number 5, the board will consult with his attorney regarding legal issues relating to donations to the district pursuant to TGC 551.071. Do I have a motion to convene in closed session? A motion by trustee Hiller. Do we have a second?
I second.
Second by trustee Heredia. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. The time is 7:18 PM and the date is Tuesday, August 11, 2026. And the Board of Trustees is now in closed session and no action will be taken in closed session. Okay, the time is 7:47 PM. The date is Tuesday, August 11, 2026, and the Board of Trustees of the Eagle Pass Independent School District is now in open session, and we will move to item number 11. Number one, the board will consider and take appropriate action on the request to hire personnel to fill vacancies.
Mr. President, I move to approve the request to hire personnel to fill vacancies as discussed in closed session.
We have a motion by trustee Gonzalez. Do we have a second? Second by trustee Jaime Barrera. Yes. Any other questions? If not, all in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Number two, the board will consider and take appropriate action on the request to hire a professional employee to be assigned by the superintendent as deputy superintendent for curriculum and instruction, subject to the possible future reassignment by the superintendent.
Mr. President, I move to approve the request to hire a professional employee, David Camarillo, to be assigned by the superintendent as deputy superintendent for curriculum and instruction, subject to possible future reassignment by the superintendent as discussed in closed session.
We have a motion by trustee Martinez. Do we have a second?
I second it.
Second by trustee Heredia. Any other questions? If not, all in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Congratulations. Number three, the board will consider and take appropriate action on the request to hire a professional employee to be assigned as network administrator, subject to the possible future reassignment by the superintendent.
I move to approve the request to hire a professional employee, Misael Portillo, to be assigned by the superintendent as a network administrator, subject to the possible future reassignment by the superintendent as discussed in closed session.
We have a motion by trustee Heredia. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by trustee Gonzalez. Any other questions? If not, all in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. And number four, the board will consider and take a possible action on the level 3 grievance appeal of Veronica Chavez. The grievance was not present at this time, so no action will be taken at this time. Now we will move to correspondence and information. Mr. Mijares?
Thank you, Mr. Barrera. Just a couple of announcements. Just a reminder that we have a special board meeting Wednesday, August 19th at 6 p.m. And also that the TA required safety training must be completed by August 31st. An email with the link has been sent to you. And that's what I have tonight.
Thank you very much. And now we will move to adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Motion by trustee Martinez. Do we have a second? Second by trustee Hiller. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. The time is 7:50 today, Tuesday, August 11th, 2026, and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.